Chapter 8. The next day, still no fries, deep breathing, a little yoga from a tape that Carl had left on our doorstep. We sat in the living room, class in session. They had their notebook open, pencils ready, and I felt like a small animal about to run over by a tractor. Or like a meteor was about to hit Earth, and I was the only person who knew, and I was trying to be real cool about it so no one would panic. I had assured that if I had been a good student, it wouldn't be that hard to be a good teacher. But teaching required participation. You had to learn it first, and then you taught it. I didn't have that kind of time. At night the children slept in my arms, bashing me with their limbs, while they dreamed of manageable terrors. When would I study? They were always with me, so I was winging it. The night before, my eye had swollen completely shut from Madison's errant elbow, the skin angry and purple, and I rused the fact that the other side of my face, where Bessie had clawed at me in the pool, was just starting to heal and scab over. The kids kept asking if they could touch my new bruise, if I wanted to put more ice on it, like I hadn't spent the last few hours holding a bag of ice to my face. They seemed intrigued by my pain, the way I seemed to bear it without complaining, I think. They appreciated this about me, that I wouldn't cry. I had battled scars, and their skin could not be marked, not even by fire. That morning when I looked in the mirror, it was gruesome, radiating nearly to my hairline. During our breathing exercise, I would occasionally steal a glance at the kids, and they were openly staring at the injury, the whole time taking cleansing breaths of fresh air into their lungs. We were doing Tennessee history since I wanted their learning to be connected to their lives, to feel like we weren't rigidly adhering to whatever the man said and was needed to learn by now. But now, I kind of missed the man. He was always so confident, especially when he was fucking things up left and right. So, I said, tapping the cold little chalkboard like something from a one-room schoolhouse on the prairie, let's think of a famous Tennessean, and then we can go to the library and find more about them. I wanted to say that, yes, the interested Madison had left it in the mansion, but I didn't really know anything about it. The one thing I'd been on it of the house of the guy who sometimes invited me over to smoke weed. I waited for like 30 minutes to print off Wu-Tang Clan lyrics. I honestly had no idea what else the internet might be used for. So we had was the library, and I used that, a trip out in the public, as a way to get them to focus. Who are famous people from Tennessee? I asked. They just shrugged. You don't know anyone famous born in Tennessee? I asked, and I tried to think of if I knew anyone famous from Tennessee. I knew the professional wrestler Jimmy Violent was from a town near my own because some guy at the Save-A-Lot talked about it all the time, but he didn't seem famous enough. Our dad, I guess, Roland offered. I blinked visibly. Somebody else, I said. We don't know, Bessie said, again frustrated to have to admit what she didn't know. I watched her stop, take a deep breath. I was proud of her. She looked at her notebook, thinking, "Oh," she suddenly exclaimed, "I know." "Who?" Roland asked, generally curious. "Dolly Parton," she said. "Holy shit," I said. "Okay. Oops, okay, sorry. But yeah, that's perfect. Dolly Parton is perfect. Mom played some of her records for us," Roland admitted. "Jolene, 9 to 5, Bessie said. "I thought it would be over. Dollywood, Island in the Stream. That body, she was the best thing that ever came out of Tennessee." Jesus Christ, it wasn't even close. Bessie had gotten it on the first try. "She's the greatest," I said. "So let's write that down. We'll see if we can find a biography of her at the library." "Who else?" Roland said, now excited like it was a game. "Well," I said, "Daniel Bone, maybe. No, wait, Davy Cricket. With the coonskin cap, Bessie said. Our mom had a record about him, too. That's him. I think he's from Tennessee. We'll look it up. There was a row of encyclopedias, so I grabbed the third volume, Kia So Duke, and looked it up. Okay, yes, he was born in Greeny Country, Tennessee, I told them. Add that to the list. Who else? Roland asked. A black hole waiting everything, but I was confident now. I was rolling. Oh, I think Avon York, I offered. I knew he had a hospital or something named after him near Nashville. There was a movie one of my mom's boyfriends made us watch that starred Jimmy Stewart or Gary Cooper. Someone handsome like a dad should be. He was in one of the world wars, maybe. World War II. He killed like a lot of Germans, I think. That's right, he killed a ridiculous amount all by himself. Oh, I'll do my report on him, Rollins said. Okay, that's perfect, I told them. Bessie, you'll write a report on Dolly Parton. I'll do some research on Crockett. And Roland, you'll do Sergeant York. Is that cool? Super cool, Bessie said. It was weird to realize that for all the way that they'd been neglected, they were intelligent, so quick to figure things out. You only had to tell them once, and they knew what to do. So we can go to the library, Roland asked, and get ice cream, Bessie asked. Well, let me check with Carl, I said, and both kids groaned, fell dramatically across the sofa. I went over to the phone and dialed his number. He answered before the first ring had ended. Yes, he said. It's Lillian, I said. Yes, I know. What's going on? Oh, not much. Just wanted to hear the sound of your voice, I said, just to fuck with him. Lillian, what do you need? Are you busy? I asked. Obviously, this is an emergency, so I'm going to hang. We need to go into town, I finally told him. To the library. I don't think that's a great idea, he replied. So we'll never leave the estate, I asked. We can't live like this, okay? Jesus, he said, his voice raising, and then, with crazy self-control lowering before he finished the sentence, then haven't ever been there a week. You act like it's the Iran hostage crisis or something. Well, to them it is, I replied, keeping my voice low so the kids wouldn't hear. The more we keep them cooped up in here, the more they feel like freaks, like we're hiding them. I don't think this is a good idea, he said. I'll be with them the whole time, I told them. If they go, he said, if they go, then we'll both be with them. That's fine, I said. Let me talk to Senator Roberts, he finally said. Isn't he busy? I asked him. He is, he said. He's incredibly busy, and he's not going to be happy to be disturbed. Then just ask Madison, I told him, and he paused for a long time. You know, I'm right, I continued. You know it, Carl. Fine, he said. I'll call you back. I turned to the kids. Maybe, I said, but I said it's really high positive way. Like the power of my good cheer would make this happen. Yes, they shouted. We're going to the library. Maybe, I said. The time with my teeth showing too much. Like I was being held at gunpoint, but couldn't let anyone know. 10 minutes later, while the kids were kind of shimmying around the room, like maybe moonwalking poorly, the phone rang, and it was Carl. Okay, he said, we can go. I'm coming over there. I have something that I want to try. Come on over, I said, so excited with the chance to leave the place. I finally realized how long it had been at the estate, how stir-crazy I'd become. I'd still have the kids with me, and they still might catch on fire, but if they did, there'd be so much open space for me to run away and hide from the consequences. We're going to the library, I said, and the kids did their weird shimmy dance, and I wondered if that's what they'd been taught was dancing. When Carl showed up, we were all dressed and ready, the kids off full hair slicked down and styled like they were in Duran Duran cover band. I had tried to put makeup on the bruise, but it made it look worse somehow. almost like it was a faking an injury, so I rubbed it off, which hurt like hell. Dear Lord, Carl said when he had looked at me, what happened to you? He immediately looked at the kids. What happened to her? He suspected them entirely. Madison hit her, Roland said. Basketball, I told him. It's fine. Mrs. Robert plays to win, Carl admitted, as if my face getting smashed hadn't made perfect sense to him now. Did you put ice on it? He asked, and I just made a face. Carl was holding the giant black bucket. What's that? I asked, changing the subject, and Bessie shouted, It's ice cream! No, Carl replied, his face so pained, like this feral kid's actively caused him real pain and lasting trauma. It's not ice cream. Why would you think it was ice cream? It's a big bucket, Roland offered. I kind of promised them that we could have ice cream, I told him. Well, it's not ice cream, sorry. What is it then? I asked. It's stun gel, he said. Remember what we talked about? Oh, I said, remembering that it's a big bucket. I had to buy it in bulk, he said. I have 6 more buckets, 5 gallons each in the garage, so it better work. He pried open the bucket, and we all over inside like it might hold the soul of an ancient king. But it wasn't exciting. It was just a big bucket of gel. It looked honestly like semen. It looked like a big bucket of, I don't know, drool. The point is, it looked gross, and we were supposed to slather the kids in it. Carl rubbed a little on his index finger, and then clicked it, opened a lighter, and the flame nearly an inch high. He held his finger right over the flame, and then directly in the flame for about 3 seconds. Nothing, he said. It's good. It smells funny, Bessie said, holding her nose. It actually smells kind of like eucalyptus. But it was overpowering so much that it seemed unsafe. Okay, Carl said. So I talked my buddy, and he said that we just apply it directly to their skins. And yes, he said that it's safe, and that should do it. And we just replied it throughout the day, I guess. You guess, I said. You don't know? Well, he said I couldn't tell him the real reason for why we were getting it, could I? And stuntmen don't just walk around all day with it on. They do it for a specific scene, a single shot. But yes, it's mostly just water and tea tree oil with some scientific stuff added to it. It's safe, I think. Why are we talking about this, Bessie asked, slowly backing away from the bucket. It's for you guys, I said, to keep you from catching. At this point, I don't want to say fire around them if I could avoid it. I just call it catching. Why can't we just keep doing the breathing stuff? She asked. This is an extra level of security, Carl said, and I so badly wanted Carl that square to shut up. He wasn't helping. It's kind of a plan B, okay? I don't want to put that on, she said. What about fireman stuff? I asked Carl. The Nomex? He replied. I'm still waiting for it. Why is it taking so long? I asked. First of all, it's only been a few days, okay, Lillian? And how easy do you think it is to obtain it? Like, do you think I can just find child sizes of Nomex clothing at Walmart? Like, for tiny firefighters, I'm having to get it altered. It's complicated. I'm being pushed to my limits in terms of thinking creativity about our situation. He looked at the frazzle, actually his hair not perfectly combed, and so I put up my hands. Fine, I said, I'm sorry. Thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you, he replied. Okay, kiddos, I said, just try it on. It's like a science experiment. This will be our science lesson for the day. You first, Bessie said. Of course, I said, angry at the reversal, but acting like I'd already thought of it. Of course, I'll go first. I looked at Carl, and he blushed a little. Then he dipped his hand into the bucket and took a sharp breath. Cold, he grunted. The gel was weird and viscous, and he started to apply it to my bare arm. It was so cold, just weirdly cold, that it kind of felt good. He rubbed it up and down my arm, coating it. Then he did the others. Do you want to do our legs? he asked, and I shook my head. That's good for me, I told him. He helped me the lighter and flicked the flame back into existence. Don't flinch or anything, he said. It doesn't hurt. He held the flame directly under my arm, and there was this little weird movement where I just certain that my skin was burning, that I was on fire. But it just but I just gritted my teeth and realized that no, I was fine. I wasn't burning, and even for a second it felt amazing, like nothing could ever hurt me. Was this what children felt like when they were burning? I had no idea, but I wished it would last forever. Once Carl turned off the lighter, I looked at the kids, showing them that I was fine. See, it's awesome. God, it's really neat. And it's cooling. It feels good in this hot weather. Roland put out his arm. It's like slime, he said, excited. It's so gross. Carl kind of grinned, just a little, and then dipped his hands into the bucket. He did. Roland and I did Bessie, their arms and legs. It's so cold, Roland shouted when we were finished. We stared at them, appraising how strange they looked, like a ghost had run right through them and left them traumatized. It's not it's not great, Carl admitted. Maybe it'll dry a little, I said. I'll get a little less slimery. I don't think so, he said, but let's go. Let's just get it over with. I sat in the back of the van with the kids, towels on the upholsteries to protect it from the gel, while Carl drove us to the public library. Even though they'd been chattering about getting off the estate, the kids were eerie silent on the drive, like they'd been drugged, their faces pressed against the window. When we pulled into the parking lot, Bessie said, "What if they don't have books that we want?" "They'll have it," I said. "Maybe you should go in and check for us," she said, leaning back in her seat. "That's fine with me," Carl said. "Tell me the books that you want and I'll get them." "No," I said. "That defeats the whole purpose of coming." "I don't want to go in there," Bessie said. "Everyone is going to stare at us." "No one is going to stare at you, Bessie," I told her. "They will. They'll think we're weirdos." Honestly, Bessie, people don't care about anything but themselves. They don't even notice things. They are never looking at what's interesting. They're always looking at themselves. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I promise." I told her, hoping that I was right. "Come on," Carl said. "Let's move." We walked into the library, air-conditioned, humming. Not much activity on a weekday morning. The librarian, an old man with thick glasses and a really lovely smile that showed crooked teeth, waved at us. Bessie frowned, suspicious, but Rollins said, "Hi." A few seconds later, we passed an old lady with a stack of books in her arms. "Hi," Rollins said, and she nodded. There was a toddler in the kids' area with her mother, and Rollins said, "Hi," and the toddler looked confused, but then the mother replied with her own greeting. Carl said, "Roland, you don't have to say hi to everyone, okay?" "Don't make it weird, Carl," I said. "It's fine. Roland, say hi to anyone you want." "I will," Roland said, looking over his shoulder at Carl and making a face. We walked over to the computer and did a quick search. Carl went with Roland to one section of the library, and Bessie and I walked over to another stack. "I feel funny," Bessie said. "This stuff feels funny on my skin. I don't like it." "I kind of like it," I said, looking at my arms. "Let's just go," she said, but I directed her to the aisle of books, and we searched the call numbers until we found it. Dolly, My Life, and Other Unfinished Business. Dolly looked like a good witch, someone who just absolutely fucked up evil queens with her kindness. "This looks good," Bessie said, flipping through the pages, calming herself. But as soon as she looked up at me, the anxiety returned. "Can we please go now?" she asked. Okay, I said. "Let's find Carl and your brother." As soon as I said it, Carl was there with his hands firmly attached to Roland's shoulder. Roland was holding two books, Sergeant York. "I think we'll good," Carl said. "Okay," I said. "Let's check them out." "Wait," Carl said. "Don't you have a library card?" "What?" I asked. "No, I don't have one. I don't even live here." "Well, I don't have one," Carl said. "I don't have a library card." "Carl, why don't you have a library card?" I asked him. "Because," he said, staying calm, "I don't like to borrow things. I like to have them. I like to keep them, so I don't use the library. I just buy what I want. Well, go get a card. Go sign up for one. You need proof of address, he said, like a piece of mail. Do you have that? I asked. Do I have a piece of mail with my address on it? On my person, he replied. Are you serious? Well, why didn't you think about this before we drove here? I asked. Stop fighting, Roland said. Just ask the librarian if we can borrow them. We need a card, I said, and now it felt like we were stuck behind enemy lines with sensitive documents. It felt like a movie. Why was I doing this? Why didn't we just put the books away and come back another time? Why didn't we act like normal people instead of huddling up in the stacks, our bodies shiny with fire gel? I knew we shouldn't have come, Bessie said. It was weird to watch her. A kid who's a bit strange, who seems so angry, turns into this person, someone who was scared of the world. I wanted her to catch on fire, to jump out a window that I thought I could handle. I could mitigate damage. I could not make people feel better. Do you want the book? I asked Bessie. Yes, she said, looking at the Dolly Parton book. I mean, she seems like a cool lady. I grabbed the book off the shelf. Something about monastery in Germany. Give me that Dolly Parton book, Carl said. Lillian will just come back. Madison definitely has a library card. She's on the board for the library. Here, I said, handing Carl the Dolly Parton book. Put this in your pants. No way, he said, but I punched his arm as hard as I could. Just do it, I told him. Carl put the book down the front of his pants, and I hissed, the back of your pants, man. Come on. Then I turned to Roland. Pick up one of these two books, I said, and then put the other one back. And Roland, God bless him, simply turned and threw one of the books into the aisle so hard, so beautifully, the book skittering across the floor and then bumping against the wall. Put this other one in your pants, I said, and he put it behind him, tucking it into his waistband and pulling the shirt over it. Lillian, Carl said, this is not. Come on, I said. I handed Bessie the monastery book. Hold this and act normal, okay? Nothing to see here. No one cares. No one cares about us. And I pushed them all, one, two, three, out of the aisle, and we walked towards the exit. Find what you need, the librarian asked us, and I nodded. We took lots of notes, I said. Good research. As we passed through the doors, the alarm went off, and I looked surprised. Both children froze, and Carl looked like he was going to vomit. I kind of nudged Carl and Roland further outside the door, onto the stairs. Oh my, I said. The librarian stood up, slowly shaking his head. No problem, he said. Before he could get up, I looked down at Bessie and took the book out of her hands. I walked to the librarian as he sat down, relieved to not have to move. She's always grabbing things, I said, and the man laughed. No harm done, he said, and then he seemed to notice my bruise, but was unfazed. To his credit, me love him. I made me love him. No harm, I said, of course not, and then I walked outside, where the three of us were waiting for me. Let's just keep going super cool, I said. Nothing to see here. When we got to the van and packed ourselves inside it, Carl and Roland moved the books from their pants. I took the book from Carl's and handed it to Bessie. Thank you, Bessie said. You stole it for me. We're borrowing it, okay? I said, just in a roundabout way. For a second, there was that weird flicker in her eyes, that wilderness, that I loved, that I wanted to live inside. A wicked child was the most beautiful thing in the world. Nobody cares, she said. Nobody. Nope, I replied. Nobody cares about us, she said, almost laughing. Carl started the van, and we pulled out of the parking lot. We looked like a normal family in there, Roland said, and this made Carl breathe sharply through his nose. I guess so, I told Roland. Can we still have ice cream, Bessie asked. Carl, I asked. We can have ice cream, he said. That's fine with me. The kids read their books, and they leaned against me. And even though I actually did not like to be touched, I just let it happen. I allowed it. It was fine. After the ice cream, so many sprinkles, still delirious from the simple act of walking into an open space, of not being inside our house, we happily went right back to that house and waited for the next day, when we'd have our family dinner. That morning we found ourselves easily taking up the routine. Roland was a master of yoga, and I eventually just kind of let him take it over, because my body simply wouldn't hold the positions. "This is easy," he said, doing this weird kind of crow pose, his entire body supported by his two noodle arms. "Why is this supposed to be hard?" We did some basic math, using Oreo cookies as props. We took notes for our bibliographies of Parton and York. We shot baskets, and I showed Bessie the proper form. The smoothness of it, the way the ball had just an extension of your arm. It took her lots of effort, but she was hitting about 20% of her shots and dribbling. Holy shit, sometimes when the kids were invested in something, when they didn't look entirely blasted on how their lives had been, I'd try to truly look at them. Of course, they both had those bright green eyes, like you'd seen on the cover of a bad fantasy novel, where the hero can turn into some kind of bird of prey. But they were not attractive children. The rest of their the rest of their faces softly and undefined. They looked ratty. I hadn't even tried to fix their cult haircuts. I feared that fixing them would only make the kids more plain. They had round little bellies, way past the point where you'd expect a kid to lose it. Their teeth were just crooked enough that you could tell that they had it handled with care. And yet, when Bessie managed to get the layup to bank perfectly off the backboard, her eyes got crazy. She started vibrating. When Roland watched you do anything, even open a can of peaches, he looked like he was cheering you on at mile marker 19 of your marathon. When Roland put his fingers in my mouth in the middle of the night, when Bessie kicked me in the liver and made me startle awake, I did not hate them. No matter what happened after this, when the kids moved into the mansion with Jasper and Madison and Timothy, no one would ever think that they were really a part of an immaculate family. They would always kind of belong to me. I had never wanted kids because I never wanted a man to give me a kid. The thought of it grossed the expectation of it. But if a hole in the sky opened up and two weird children fell to earth, smashing into the ground like meteors, then that was something I could care for. If I gleamed like it was radiating danger, I'd hold it. I would. "Are we going to dress up for tonight?" Bessie suddenly asked, me breaking me out of daydream. "Do you want to dress up?" I asked. "I just bet Madison and Timothy are going to be dressed up. I don't want them to look better than us," she replied. "Can I wear a tie?" Roland asked. "I guess," I said, and he cheered and ran off, his only wish granted. "Can you fix our hair?" Bessie asked. "Make it like Madison's?" "I can do that. I, I can't do that," I admitted. I had to be at least somewhat honest with her. "Madison is lucky," I told her. "She just made that way." "Can you make our hair look normal?" she asked. "Isn't It's in a bad place," I said, and she nodded like she knew. "There's not much you can do but let it grow out and then get it into the right shape." "Could you cut it shorter?" she asked. I could, I guess. I had learned how to cut one of my mother's boyfriend's hair. He'd get drunk and then try to talk me through the steps to make it neat. He knew what he liked, and I could eventually get there. He let me shave him too, which was terrifying, how badly I wanted to cut him, even though he was one of the nicer ones. "I hate him," she said, meaning her father, "but I want him to think we're good." "You are good," I said. "Your father knows that." "No, he doesn't," Bessie said. "He does, Bessie," I said. She wouldn't say anything, and I just watched her grind her teeth. "What would you do to him?" I asked. "What do you mean?" she replied, her elbow cocked. "If he were here right now, what would you do?" I asked, her curious. "I'd bite him," she said. "Like you bite me?" I asked, laughing. "No, I don't know who you were then," she said. "I'm sorry about that. Him, I would really bite him. I'd bite his nose." "You have really sharp teeth," I said. "That would definitely hurt him. I'd bite him so hard that he would cry and he'd beg me to stop." she said. I could see her body warming up, turning patchy. I don't care. We were outside. We had infinite clothes. We were practicing. And what would you do if he begged you to stop? I'd stop, she said, and as if it surprised her, her whole body temperature changed, like the sun had gone down without warning. That sounds okay to me, I told her. That's fine. Do you hate your dad? She suddenly asked me, like she didn't want to think about her own dad anymore. I don't have a dad, I replied, and she accepted this without question. Do you hate your mom? She asked. Yeah, I said. Would you bite her? She said. It wouldn't hurt her, I said. Was she bad to you? Yeah, she was. Not horrible, just like didn't care about me. She didn't like to think about me. It made her upset to know I was there. Our mom, Bessie said, she gets upset if it isn't thinking about us. All she does is think about us, and even for a second she thinks that we're not thinking about her, she gets so sad. I think maybe parents can be pretty bad at this stuff, I told her. Do you want to be a parent? She asked. No, I said. Not really. Why not? Because I wouldn't be good at it either. I'd be so bad at it. I don't think so, she told me. And if I could feel it washing over me, wanting to take these kids, I'm not joking, when I say I'd never liked people, because people scared me. Because anytime I said what was inside me, they had no idea what I was talking about. They made me want to smash a window just to have a reason to walk away from them. Because I kept messing up, because it seemed so hard not to mess up. I lived a life where I had less than what I desired. So instead of wanting more, sometimes I just made myself want even less. Sometimes I made myself believe that I wanted nothing, not even food or air. And if I wanted nothing, I'd just turn into a ghost, and that would be the end of it. And I had known them for less than a week. I didn't know them at all, and I wanted to burst into flames too. I thought how wonderful would it be to have everyone stand at your respectful distance. The kids were making me feel things, and they were complicated, because the kids were complicated. They were so damaged, and I wanted to take them, but I knew that I wouldn't, and I knew that I couldn't give them the hope that I would. Bessie, I finally said, your dad seemed like he messed up, okay? But I think he wants to be a good person, and Madison is my friend, and I know that she is a good person. And Timothy, whatever, he's just too little right now, but he'll end up being fine. This is your family, okay? And I don't know if you understand this, but your family is so rich. They are richer than anyone I'd ever known in my entire life. They are richer than all people, even I've ever known put together. This will be good for you. Whatever you want, they will try to give it to you. And that might not seem like such a big deal now, but when you're happy for it someday, when you really want something, you'll be able to take it. If you stay with them, if you give Madison and your dad a chance. I understand, she said, but her eyes were so intense I couldn't look at her. I was talking to this spot on the ground. How much longer is summer? She then asked me. A long time, I told her. A really long time. That night we walked out of our guest house and made our way to the mansion. Roland had some khakis on and a white dress shirt with a blue tie that had taken me 7 tries to knot correctly. The mechanics all weird on a little kid. I'd clipped his hair pretty easily. Boys are easy with hair. You just keep it neat and nobody cares beyond that. I don't know that I'd ever heard a straight man complain about straight men's hair in my entire life. Bessie had a black floral summer dress, kind of gruggy, actually, quite cool. Roland looked like an intern at a bank, but Bessie looked like a girl at her mom's 3rd wedding. I buzzed the sides of her hair, left it floppy on the top, and I didn't make her pretty, but I made it excellent. Her eyes, the wildness of her face, they both looked like wild kids in disguise, undercover. But that wasn't good enough. All that Jasper probably wanted was an attempt at normalcy. That's all Madison wanted, I was sure. She never wanted them to lose their actual weirdness. The fire, yes, okay, she wanted that gone. But that was underneath that. She appreciated it. I knew she would. I had brushed on a third layer of the stunt gel, though it was hard to get that amount right. I was worried about the mess it would make the kids' clothing, the chair in the dining room, but whatever. I knew that the moment they saw Jasper, I'd be relieved that I put the goop on them. Madison, always Madison, like a spokesperson for the rest of the world. All the good things contained in it welcomed us at the back door. Oh, Madison said, looking up at the children. You two look wonderful, so grown up. She then looked at me, my messed up face with bruises and scratches. Oh God, she said, and not able to hide her surprise. She hadn't seen me since she put that elbow in my face. You know, I have makeup that would. I don't know. Lillian, that's bad. It's fine, I said. Lillian, though, Rollins said. Tough, Rollins said proudly. She's the toughest person I know, Madison replied, but I wish she didn't have to be so tough all the time. I thought, then maybe you didn't have to become a psycho in one-on-one game in front of children. But I let it go. I breathed deeply. And then 5 seconds later, there was Jasper. Hello, children, he said, and this time he seemed more put together, more charming. No seersuckers, thank God. Seersuckers was for fucking adults. He smiled at them. I know this is hard for you guys, he continued, the slyness adding to the charm. The way he looked at them, like he counted on their votes. But I've been really looking forward to this, and I won't ask for a hug right now, but sometime when you're ready, I've been thinking about giving you guys a hug and telling you that I'm happy that you're here. The kids just nodded, maybe a little embarrassed. Madison touched Jasper with a smile and smiled at him, nodded her approval. Who's hungry? Madison asked. I'm hungry, I said, answering for all of us, and we walked into the dining room. Timothy was already there, his hands clasped together on the table like he was ready to pray, or like he was your boss and you was really sorry he was going to have to fire you. The more I saw of Timothy, his formality and robotic qualities, the more I liked him. One time I asked Madison about Timothy. How do you phrase it politely? Electrics, and she nodded like yes, she knew. He's not good with other kids, honestly, she said. He's weird, I know. But I wasn't the most normal kid, Lil. I was a beautiful child, truly. I know that's vain to say, but I was a kid, so I could be ugly in my thoughts. It made me happy sometimes to not be pretty on the inside. And my mom, God, she hated it. Was this prim and proper woman, and was she was real pretty, and it was like she'd never had a dark thought in her life. I think I scared her, like maybe it was something inside her that was unwittingly made me this. Every little thing that wasn't from a lady's handbook, every sharp edge she tried to sand it down. She had this running commentary, all the things that I was doing which I wasn't aware of doing because I was a kid, and she made me feel like shit. She was used she was used to my brothers like this dopey fucking boy who tortured the dog and broke shit and were 100 times worse than me. But they were boys, and that was okay. No, she forced only on me. Madison, people are going to get so tired of these little ticks of yours, she told me. And so I doubled down. I tried to break her as she tried to break me. We fought a lot over the prettiest things. She tried to keep me from playing basketball. And whatever, I know she loves me. And I love her. At least she cared in some messed up way. Unlike my dad, who didn't even seem to know that I existed until I got older and could be of use to him. But she hurt me. She hurt me at the moment when I didn't need to be hurt. So when Timothy became this strange little toddler who was like fantasized by pocket squares, I said I would never try to curb it. I knew that the way I knew that the world would do that eventually anyway, so I let him be weird. I like it. It makes me happy. And I guess I was beginning to understand. I was used to it. It seemed like maybe he was a performance artist, a completely mimic, and this was just how he messed with people. What I'm saying is that all children seem cool to me at this point. Mary came out with her arms full of plates. The adults each got Caesar salad with grilled chicken on top, and Timothy had a plate of homemade chicken fingers and mac and cheese. And Bessie and Roland got what they had expectedly requested, Tyson frozen chicken nuggets. Oh wow, Roland said, thanks. Mary made sure to get what you wanted, Madison said, and Bessie, embarrassed now that she wanted was something nobody else could ever have dreamed of wanting, looking down at her plate, and said, thank you, Miss Mary. It's nothing, Mary said. There is no point in making children eat what they don't want. A fool's errand. Could I have some of that salad too? Bessie asked, and Mary simply nodded, and returned with a small plate and a huge bottle of Heinz ketchup for her nuggets. Welcome back to your home, children, she said, and man, there was some weird judgment in there, but she pulled it off, like a badass. Who was going to stop her? This is nice, Madison said. Jasper, do you want to say the blessing? Jasper nodded. Bessie and Roland looked dumbfounded. Madison and Timothy and Jasper all closed their eyes and clasped their hands, but me, the kids, just stared at one another. Obviously, we knew what prayer was, or did the kids know what it was? Did they know who God was? Did they think that their mother had made them out of a clay? I had no idea, but I was not going to make them pray if they didn't want to. We'd listen politely, and Jasper talked about gratitude and infinite wisdom, about families made whole again. He talked about sacrifice and appreciation for those sacrifices. It was hard to tell who thought he was making the sacrifices. Him? Could he be that stupid? He was one in a series of Robert's men who had been given everything they had ever wanted before they even had to ask for it. Was the sacrifice simply not taking the things that other people were entitled to? Were the kids the sacrifices he was making? Maybe I wasn't going to Maybe I wasn't giving him the benefit of the doubt, but if he said the word sacrifice one more time, I was going to punch him in the face. He finally moved on, talking about forgiveness and the desire of new beginnings. Bored, Roland grabbed one of the nuggets and ate it in one bite. Amen, Jasper finally said, and he opened his eyes and looked up, and he stared right at me before I could even pretend that I had been participating, and so it looked like I had been staring at him the entire time. But he held my gaze and smiled. Let's eat, he said. And it was fine. It was awkward, but it felt like the size of the mansion, how fancy everything was, would make any normal situation more awkward. It wasn't bad. The kids weren't on fire, and that was a new measuring stick for what was going and what was bad. What was good and what was bad. Eating a Caesar salad and making boring small talk was not bad. Not when the alternative was pulling down a set of $1,000 curtains because they were ablaze. What is your job like, Bessie? Finally asked her father. You could see how happy it made him that she had tried, and yet it also seemed to confuse him because he wasn't exactly sure how to respond. Well, he began, generally considering how to answer everyone in the state of Tennessee entrusts me with looking after their interests. For instance, I work with other senators to make sure that things our citizens need are taken care of. I make sure that jobs come to the state so people can work and support their families, and I make sure that the whole country, is moving towards a better future. You take care of people, Bessie said. Sort of, he replied. I try to. Okay, she said. Your family, Jasper said to her. For generations and generations, you have made their home in Tennessee. It's wonderful state, and I make sure that it stays that way, or when it needs help, I try to help so it can stay great. Pop said that politics is mostly moving money around and making sure that some of it sticks to you, Roland said. That doesn't sound like Richard, Jasper replied, but that's not the way I've tried to do my job. Because you don't need more money, Bessie said. No, Jasper said, I don't. We're studying Tennessee with Lillian, Rollin told the table. Is that right? Jasper said, smiling. We're doing biographies on great Tennesseans, I told him, like I was still interviewing for the job, or maybe like I was hoping for a letter of recommendation later. Like who? Madison asked. Senator York, Roland said. Oh man, he killed like 25 Germans. He was a great man, Jasper replied. A good Democrat, a lifelong Democrat, he said. I'm a Democrat first, last, and all the time. There's a statue of him at the state capitol. Wonderful statue. Maybe Lillian can take you there sometimes to see it. Okay, I said. What about you, Bessie? Madison asked. Dolly Parton, she announced. Jasper said, considering the name. She's an entertainer, though, isn't she? Bessie looked confused and turned to me. She's an artist, I said. Well, I suppose, Jasper said. I can think of several real Tennessean icons that might make for a better report. It's not really a report, I admitted. We're just researching on our interests. I reached over to Bessie and touched her arm, feeling for her temperature, but the gel made it hard to accurately gauge. And Dolly Parton is a humanitarian, Jasper, Madison added. She's done a lot for the state and for the children of the state. She's an actress, he said, like this was evidence of something. She was smiling, maybe playing, but Bessie seemed embarrassed now, like she had made a mistake, and I got angry. She's the greatest Tennessean in the state in the state's entire history, I said flatly, definitively. Oh, Lily, and Jasper said, chuckling. She wrote, will always love you. I said, dumbfounded, like this didn't end the debate. Lily, and Jasper said, his charm turning serious, so haughty. Do you know who that Do you know that there have been 3 Tennesseans who have served as the President of the United States? I know, I told him. As a kid, I memorized every single U.S. president and could recite them in chronological or alphabetical order. I could do it right now if I wanted to, but none of them were born in Tennessee. Is that right? Madison said. Is that right, Jasper? Jasper's face got a little red. Well, I mean, technically that's correct, he said, but I cut in, and Johnson was impeached, and Jackson, come on. He was kind of a monster. That's not entirely, Jasper sputtered. Dolly Parton, I said, now looking at Bessie, waiting until she looked right at me. She is better than Andrew Jackson. Bessie smiled, her crooked teeth showing, and I smiled back, like we'd played practical jokes on her idiot dad. Jasper looked like he was dying. He was holding his fork like he wanted to stab me with it, and I knew right at this moment that Jasper would find a way to remove me from this house when it was prudent. When I had done the needed me to do. Jasper, like most men I'd ever known, did not like to be gently corrected in public, and I should have been more careful, but I wasn't savvy. I didn't see the point. Could we go to Dollywood, Bessie asked, and Jasper was now stone cold dead. It was beautiful. If I conjured by a spell a charm created in of whatever the senator had been utterly humiliated, Carl appeared in the dining room. Sir, he said to Jasper, I'm sorry to interrupt this family dinner, but you have a phone call. Well, Jasper said, trying to return to his usual nature. Can it wait until after dessert? It's rather urgent, sir, Carl replied, and I believe that perhaps Mrs. Roberts might also want to privy in the information. Madison locked eyes with Jasper, and an interest to which them worked the way it seemed to halves of a singular unit, the way they both stood at the same time. Madison kissed Timothy, who acted like maybe his parents were called away for urgent business all the time, and then followed her husband out of the room. What's going on? I asked Carl, but he shook his head and walked behind the two of them. That's weird, Roland asked. Do we have to wait to eat dessert? Bessie asked. I got up and went to the kitchen, where Mary was always ready, plating 4 slices of chocolate cake. I'm coming, she said. You don't need to get up, of course. Looking good, I said, and she nodded. I know, she replied. I went back into the dining room with the kids, like I was the most embarrassing guest at a wedding. I tried to think of something to say, but when Mary was putting the cake in front of us, that seemed to remove the need for conversation. We ate, and then when we were finished, the 4 of us just sat there. Can we go? Bessie asked. I don't think so, I said, like I was a child and needed an adult to excuse me from the table. We can't just leave Timothy here. We can bring him to the guest house, Roland offered. Do you want to see the guest house? I asked Timothy, who merely shrugged like a puppeteer had a slight tremor, and the strings connected to Timothy had moved over so slightly. And I liked the idea of taking Timothy hostage, of forcing Madison or Jasper to come get him. Let's go, I said, and I helped Timothy out of his seat, and we walked across the manicured lawn to our house, and lit up and happy and deranged. What do you want to look at? Roland asked Timothy, who again just shrugged. Bessie ignored the boy and pulled a book off the shelf and pretended to read it. I knew she didn't want the boy in our house, since she already had so much. Roland showed Timothy an Etch-a-Sketch, and they sat, each handled one of the knobs, working together to make a mess on the screen. I sat next to Bessie and watched the boys play fine enough, though they didn't really talk. Every once in a while, Roland would grab the toy and shake it out and shake it, which seemed to both frighten and delight Timothy in equal measure. And then they went back to it, Roland watching Timothy more than the screen. So that wasn't so bad, right? I asked Bessie. I guess, she said. I like this dress, I told her. You don't wear dresses, she said. I just had on my jeans and a nice enough top. No, I said, not really. Do you think Madison liked us? She asked. I knew she was feeling the need to have Madison look at you, direct that sunlight your way. Oh, yes, I said. She's stoked to have you guys here. I liked the food she offered. Mary's the best. She's scary, Bessie said. Cool people are scary sometimes, I told her. You're not scary, she said, and I didn't know what to say to that. And then Timothy and Roland, tired of the toy, came over to the sofa. Timothy was looking at Bessie, trying to make sense of her, when Bessie finally couldn't ignore him any longer, and she looked at him, glaring. What? She asked. You catch on fire, he asked curiously. Bessie looked at me, and I shrugged. I wasn't sure what we were or what supposed to tell Timothy, but I guess he knew that he knew, or had overheard, or could simply sense it. The kid was that spooky, and I'd believe this possibility. Yeah, Bessie said, and Roland nodded. Can I see? Timothy asked. It doesn't work like that, Bessie said. Timothy touched Bessie's hand like he thought it might be hot. Bessie let him. And then someone was knocking at the door, and Madison and Carl approached the doorway. Timothy pulled his hand away from Bessie and immediately started walking towards the door. Madison came in. Look at this, she said. Are you having fun? She asked Timothy, who actually nodded. Or what for him he was a nod. Well, she said, we'd better get back to the house. Where's Dad? Roland asked. Well, he's been called away for some important business, she said, as much to me as to the kids. Very important, but he'll see you again soon. Madison took Timothy's hand, and they stepped outside, but Carl hovered in the doorway, which I took as a sign for me to come talk to him. What's going on? I asked. Is it about the kids? The Secretary of State just died, he whispered to me. Just dropped dead in his kitchen. Wasn't he dying? I asked. Well, he was dying, but he was a powerful man. He was going to die very slowly. This was unexpected. So what now? So Senator Roberts has been offered the post. Oh, I said. Really? There's a process that starts in Eastern now, Carl replied. But they've already been doing a lot of preparation. It looks promising. I thought about Madison, one step closer to what she wanted. I thought about Jasper, but there wasn't much feeling there. And so what does that mean? I asked. Like for the kids. Let's just see how this plays out, he said. But aren't the kids being considered? I asked how all this affects them. Honestly, Lily and Carl replied, not really, not much. So just keep taking care of them. Do you need to maintain order? You don't want the kids to mess this up, I asked. I don't want them to mess this up, he replied. Okay, fine, I said. Good night, he said to me. Good night, kids, and he said to the twins, who didn't respond. He left and I went back to the kids. Is Dad dying? Bessie asked. What? I replied, no, no way. All right, Bessie said, suspicious, hopeful. I couldn't tell. He was supposed to give us a hug after dinner, Roland said. I don't want him to hug me, Bessie said. You guys look really cool, I said, changing the subject. I'm going to take a picture of you. I found the camera that Madison had asked me to use to document their lives. Like maybe she needed some pictures in order to quickly make a happy photo album for visitors to see. The kids were slumped on the sofa, tired. You don't have to smile, I said. Just stay the way that you are. Roland's head was resting on Bessie's shoulder. Their arms weren't quite as shimmery as they had been earlier in the night. I took the picture, then took one more. We want you to be in the picture, Roland said. I can't, I told them. It's just you two. Can we go to bed, Bessie asked. Can you read us a story? Yeah, I told them. Yeah.